Well, hello and welcome to Explorer Classroom, folks. My name is Celeste Harrison, and I'm so glad to have you joining us here today. At National Geographic, we believe in the power of exploration, wonder, and storytelling to change our world for the better. This Explorer Classroom YouTube series connects students from all over the world with our National Geographic Explorers for short lessons and plenty of time for all of your student questions. Today, our featured explorer is Martina Panisi. Martina is a conservation biologist who researches giant land snails. Awesome, absolutely awesome. I can't wait for you to learn about them. She's a part of a team called the Forest Giants Project, and their main goal is to help protect the giant land snails of Sao Tome and Principe, which, if you don't know, is an island nation near the equator right off of the west coast of the African continent. Today, Martina is going to tell us all about her work with giant snails, why they're so amazing, how you study and monitor them, and how all of us can protect not only the giant snails, but also our own local invertebrates. Before we get into today's amazing lesson, let's give some shout outs for the episode. So our shout outs are going to Armijo Elementary, who, like many of you, probably have a snow day right now and are watching in the future. So hello to the future. Baquero, the Barnhouse School, Bluria Middle, Cascadia Montessori, Caseño, Druid Hills, Evergreen Elementary, all of the different homeschools out there today, Horizon Charter Schools, Imagine Hope Tolson, Kelly, Kennedy's homeschooling group, La Voix du Nord, the Martinonis, McCormick, Metzger, Mountainside Middle, Mr. Cabot's class, Mr. Hunter's class, Miss Landry's students, Miss W's students, Miss Wilsey's class, Miss B's class, Northwood Middle School, Penn, Rosemary, St. Bernadette School, and the Yetsenko group. Thrilled to have you all here, but that is plenty of talking from me. I'm going to turn it over to Martina to get us started learning about giant snails. Take it away.
Thank you, Celeste. Thank you to everyone who's listening today, and welcome to my house. And very happy to be here. And as Celeste said, I'm Martina. I study giants, and I will tell you about some giant stories, how to care about giants, why do you have to care about giants. And I'm not alone. So I'm inviting my guests that Celeste and Gina already know, Giovanna and Gary. Are you ready? So as they are not humans, they cannot come to us because they are pet snails. So before we get our pet snails, I want to tell you how to do that. But first, if you're gonna hold a pet snail, you should never hold it without washing your hands. Why? We don't want to pass disease to each others, and also maybe we have some toxic things on our hands. So it's better that first we wash our hands. And then we can take some water and spray some water on our hands, because actually snails love water. And I will tell you more later why they love water, because they actually need it to move. And then I'm gonna, sorry, Giovanna. Okay, yes. And here she is. Now she's shy because she's just coming here with us. But then eventually during our lesson, she will be more confident, and she will let us show better about where is her head and everything else, so we can learn with her. So first of all, I have a question for all of you. As Celeste said, I'm a conservation biologist. Do you know what that means? Yeah, so just to be clear, a biologist is someone that studies life. Can be anything about life. Can be a bacteria, or can be a human, or can be animals or plants. And a conservation biologist is someone that studies life to protect it. For example, they study species so it can protect them and the environment where they live, ecosystems, such as which are the systems where the species live. But so if you were to become a biologist, a conservation biologist, what species will you choose to protect? Try to think about that. Like, take just 2 seconds. What's your favorite species? What's the species you would like to protect? Okay, if you have it in your mind, if this species is a mammal, you know what is a mammal is, like bears, tigers, lions, raise your hand. Okay. So if it was a bird, raise your hand. If it was a fish, raise your hand. If it was a reptile or an amphibian, raise your hand. Well, if you have raised your hand now, all these are vertebrates, and they are very important to protect. But actually, they make 3% of all the animal species on Earth. So if all these animals that we know so much, we know so well, just make the 3%, who are all the other animals that share the planet with us? Well, 97% of all the animals in this planet are invertebrates, which are animals that don't have a skeleton like ours. And among these, we have the insects, such as ants, bees, beetles like ladybugs. We have mollusks, such as snails, slugs. Then we have octopus, etc., etc. So imagine if they are so many in this world, and we want to represent them. Imagine that in your class you are about 30 students. This means that just one of you will be a vertebrate. It wouldn't be a human. It will be a vertebrate. It will be a fish or an amphibian, a reptile, etc. And all the other of you will be beetles and snails and ants and etc., etc. So, as there are so many in this world, I want to be sure that you know some stuff about them. She's actually tasting my hand. I will show you how this works. So I want you to be sure how to know stuff about all these living beings, that the majority of the animals that live with us. And I have a question for you. I'm going to share my screen. And can you hear this? What do you think this is? Okay, for those who didn't get it, this is the sound of a snail eating. Do you know why? Well, it's exactly what Giovanni is doing right now to my hands. Snails, even if they look like fluffy and cute, they are fluffy and cute, but they have a tongue called radula. This radula is made of hundreds to thousands, depending on the species, of tools that they use to rasp the food. And it can be different type of food. You can ask me later what is it, but they can eat fruit or also meat or other type of fruits. So this radula really rasp what they want to eat. So imagine having a giant snail on your hand. What do you think it's gonna do? It will probably try to taste you to see if you are good. And it's what Giovanna is doing now. It's trying to rasp my hands to understand if I'm good or not, if there is food or not, because probably she's angry. Okay? And at night, I can hear from my bed, because most snails are nocturnal. It means that they are more active at night. They eat at night. She can rasp, and I can hear while I'm sleeping this sound, the sound you hear. And now I have another curiosity about them. So why do you think they produce so much slime? Why? What's the need to have so much slime? So there are several reasons. Actually, slime is the weapon of snails. They can do so many different stuff with it. The first thing they can do, for example, is just following other snail trails and just to hang around because they want to be together with other bodies, or to find the prey, for example, to find another snail to eat. Or sometimes they can also, like, how can I explain that? Well, they can also do some romantic stuff together in a way that some days ago I was watching the new Spider-Man and I understood, okay, what Tom Holland is doing with Zendaya is exactly what leopard slugs do. When they find their love, they go to a surface, like they can go on a tree, on a plant, and they crawl together. And when they get to the top, they just jump and they start to hang together and they start to dance. And you can see here, while spinning around, just hanging with a trail of slime. And they are using this slime like that. And then another thing that slugs can do is when a bird arrives to catch them, how are they going to hide? they don't have a shell where they can hide, right? So they start to produce so much slime and just rolling on themselves so that the bird think, okay, this prey is actually very difficult to get because it's sleeping. And eventually they give up. So snails can do actually pretty much a lot of things about that. But why should we protect snails? Why are they important? Well, when I was a little child, this is my mom, you see here, and there were so many snails in my gardens. And once I found one, and I asked my mom what that was, and she said that every living being is important. It doesn't matter if they're small, big, or weird. We all share the same home. The planet is for everyone, right? And eventually, I understood that that was right. In my garden, there were so many different living beings living there from different shapes, different colors, different stories. They had their own behaviors. There was a slug that was always sleeping under the same rock. So I thought, if I remove this rock, she's not gonna have her home anymore. Like they have their favorite place to sleep, their favorite food. But why aren't people around here noticing them? So if one day you just go outside from your home and you go to a garden and you lie on the grass, you can see that you are never alone. There are so many of them, so many different species, and each of them has its own story. And they do not only have their own story, they are also important to us for our survival. If tomorrow we disappear like humans from this planet, not much things are gonna change. But if the other animals disappear, I don't know how many days we are gonna survive because we depend on them so much. For example, the snails, when the leaves fall on the ground from the trees, they go there, they eat them, and they transformed these materials, these leaves that fell in nutrients that the trees can use again. So nothing is wasted in nature. So the snails are helping the trees, and the trees help us because without trees, well, much of the oxygen we breathe is made by trees, right? So we are helping each others. And that's not the only thing we depend on. For example, insects, bees, ants, flies, they help with pollination, producing about 3/4 of all the food and fruits that we eat. So every time you are eating a fruit at your home, remember behind that fruit, there is the work of a bee, of an ant, or of a fly. Without them, we couldn't eat much of the food we have at home. You see, it's like, have you ever played with this game? It's a Jenga tower. Our planet is like a Jenga tower in which every piece of wood is a species. So when they become extinct, the tower becomes weaker and it can fall. And when it falls, as we also are one of these wood pieces, we all fall together. So that's why we have to help each other to stay alive on this earth. We cannot allow that species get extinct. And when I understood that when I was a child, I thought, okay, so if everybody's speaking about these other species, everybody's speaking about dogs and cats and rabbits, and they are very cute, I agree. But if nobody's noticing all the other little things that are most of the animal species on Earth, who's going to do something to protect them if they become extinct? And I said, okay, we have to do something. And once some friends at university and professors spoke about a giant snail. And they said, Martina, there is a giant snail in a place in some rainforest and it's disappearing. Do you want to do something? And so I went on a journey, on an adventure, in exploration. And let's go together. So we are going to one of the places on Earth that are richest in species of animal and plants. We are in Africa, and we go directly to two small islands in the middle of the oceans called San Tomé and Principes. And despite these islands are very small, they have many species of plants and birds that only exist there. This means that if they get extinct from these islands, they don't exist anywhere else in the world. For example, imagine that you go there in the rainforest. Close your eyes. Okay. This is what you will probably hear. Many species of birds that only exist there, and you will smell all the time the ground that is wet. Why? Because it rains all the time, so the ground is always wet, and it smells very beautiful, very good. And here we are. You can open your eyes. Did you imagine it like that? No? Okay, but it's beautiful, isn't it? Okay, so I have some tips in case you want to go to the rainforest to study species and protect species, okay? Pay attention. If you go to the rainforest, never go alone. Do you see this river? Once the river got so full that we were stuck in the forest for some days. And if it wasn't for Felipe and Vasco here, I will be alone. So you never go alone in the forest. And then when you go in the forest, be sure you're wearing appropriately and that you are very respectful of where you go, because you are entering in others' home. It's not your home, it's the home of the plants and the animals that live there. So if they sting you, if they bite you or anything else, they are right because you are in their home. And here you can see some of the species you can find in the forest. You see this one? The yellow is not actually a snake. It's more related to the amphibians. So it's actually more related to this frog than this snake. And then there are some animals you should be particularly careful. For example, the black snake that we think like it's like a guardian of the forest, because if it bites you, you are dead. But then there are also other animals that already bite me. Yeah, like this giant scolopendra that one day decided to come directly to me and bite me in my foot. And you can see after 5 days, my foot was still very huge. It was so painful, but still, I was in his home. I mean, she was right. And when you go in the forest, always remember to bring some light, some headlamp. Why? Because if you got stuck in the forest, you should have some light. For example, the first time I went in the forest, it rained so hard that the tent just collapsed. And then everything was wet. And my only mate with my friend Gabriel was me, my friend Gabriel, and this amblypigio, which is not a spider, not a scorpion, but a whip spider. It's similar to the Harry Potter one. And we had to wait like hours until the morning before we got home. And this was our only friend. And if you were at night, working at night in the forest, you will probably hear this sound. So this sound is a little friend that will follow you in the forest, very curious to know, hey human, who are you? Is this little scops owl. It's very tiny and very cute. It follows you, but it doesn't harm you. And then remember to bring the GPS that allow you to understand where you are. You see, it tells you where the trail is. And if it doesn't work, because there are some areas in the forest where it will not work, you can make some marks. You see the knife here on the left. You can make some marks on the trees, so you understand where you are with your guide. And then if you want to study giants, we always bring these, which is a caliper, and allow us to understand how big the giants are. So we understand it, so we can know if they are babies or adults. Then we have a scale that makes us understand what's the weight of the snail. to see if it's healthy or not. And finally, we have nail polish. Why? Well, we have nail polish or snail polish because, or in the forest or in the place where we used to study snails, we mark them so we understand which one is which one is Susie, Paul, Giovanna, or Luis. So we put a number here, and then when we go back, we understand exactly which snail is which. But even if you can meet so many friends in the forest, we understood the first time we went there that it wasn't an easy adventure to find the giants. It was actually very hard because they were so common in the forest, but then they started to disappear very fast and we couldn't find them. But then eventually we found them and we understood that they were the last remaining on these two islands. So now I have a question for you. How big do you think the giants were? Let me show with your hands. Try with your hands. Okay, maybe something like that. Okay, Kaya is making some very big snail. So let's see. So for example, here we have a small snail that also exists on these islands. And then we have a bigger one, is not on the islands, but here, these you can find in Europe. And then we have our oboe giant snail. Dun, dun. And this one is an old snail. Why? Because it's white here. It means that it stays very long in the forest, and the rain eventually remove this color, because normally this is the color they are, black and violet. Okay, sometimes people say they look blue. They are blue snails. So imagine that you are walking in the forest and finally you find the snails. Here they were. And the first time we found them, the first time we were in front of many of them, it was almost 20. Said, finally, so in this place, they still exist, and there still exist a lot of them. And it was an honor to be in front of them, you know. They weren't scared of us. They were so harmless. They just looked at us with their eyes and said, who are these people? And didn't do anything. They weren't scared of us. But we knew that they should be, because they are disappearing so fast that they need to protect themselves. So at first we were very happy to find them. But then eventually we became a little bit sad. Why? Because this is just another species that is disappearing in this world. And if nobody noticed them, it become extinct and nobody even know. It's removed from the forest, it disappeared from our mind, and is extinct from the whole world. So we understood that the only thing that we could all do in these islands was to share the story with other people. And that's what we started to do. Even if we felt small at first, we understood that the more the people we share the story, the bigger we become, the giants we were becoming. And then finally, when everyone was listening to the story, we understood we weren't alone anymore. There were more people speaking about the giant snails and the other species that live on these islands, 55 snails and slugs that only exist there with so many beautiful colors and shapes. So we started to think that last thing, we found them and we had to ensure a future for the babies and for the adults. But nothing can be done, sorry, Giovanna is really rasping my hand. She said, you're not speaking about me for a long time. So we finally understood that this story must be shared with everyone, not adults, with children, and that everyone had to do something. So as every voice has an important, even if you feel that you are small sometimes, you shouldn't feel small, because you have the power to speak about what you think that is important to speak. And that was all for today. And now I will wait for some questions if you have about giants and what you thought about them. If you have any curiosity that you want to know, not just about giants, but also other invertebrates invertebrates. I'm here to clarify any doubts you have.
Wow, snails are amazing. I love it. As we start to wrap up for the day, Martina, do you have any general advice that you want to leave our students with?
Yeah, so I think that, but thank you very much for listening. And I really hope that when you go home, or if you're already home, you make a search about your place and what type of species of insects or invertebrates are endangered and what can you do with about them. The first thing you can do, I already tell you, is to know which one are endangered, that you can volunteer in places that are already doing something. Or you can start to be a biologist, for example, by taking some photos and uploading them on a naturalist or Seek, so that researchers can use also your visualization, your records of other species that you are helping doing something for these species. So please start knowing what's around you, explore, start to notice even the smallest living beings, because each of them is important in this world and we need you to do something to protect them.
Oh, amazing advice, amazing presentation, amazing Q&A. A huge thank you to you, Martina, for doing this really awesome, important work, and also for hanging out with us and sharing it. Please also give our thanks to Gary and Giovanna. Maybe they can get an extra spritz of water and a little bit of banana on our behalf. I don't know. Our next thank yous, of course, need to go to all the teachers out there. You guys are incredible. You make such wonderful things happen for your students. Thank you. And my last thank you goes to the students themselves. You have tremendous questions. Keep up that curiosity. It's always so inspiring to see all of your thoughts in the chat bar. I hope to see you guys at some of our upcoming events. If this time works well for you, we are right back here live next week, continuing the theme of protecting species. We'll be joining explorer Annie Peralta Garcia to talk about frogs and amphibians that she's protecting. You can register your student group for a shout out during the event and a chance to be up here on screen asking your questions face to face with an explorer at natgeoed.org/explorer classroom. Have a happy Lunar New Year and a happy Black History Month. Have an awesome day. Stay curious, keep exploring, and we'll see you back here